thundered across frozen tundras. Towering beasts with tusks like sabers and footsteps that cracked the permafrost. For thousands of years, they ruled side by side, and possibly head to head. This is the untold story of the mastodon and the mammoth, a prehistoric showdown between two Ice Age titans. One would vanish, the other would live on in legend. Before there were names, before there were museums, before science had the words to describe them, there were bones. Massive, ancient, misunderstood. The first mastodon discovery didn't make headlines, it made myths. In 1705, a farmer in New York unearthed a massive tooth the size of a human fist. No one had seen anything like it. Ridged, heavy, and completely alien. Local scholars sent it to London, where it was dubbed the remains of a biblical giant. Proof, they said, of creatures drowned in Noah's flood. It wouldn't be the last. Over the next century, enormous bones and tusks began appearing across Europe and North America. Some straight, others coiled, some locked in frozen soil, others buried beneath ancient riverbeds. But not all were the same. To early scientists, these Ice Age relics were indistinct. All giants, all mammoth. But slowly, the pieces began to diverge. Some skulls were more angular, some tusks straighter, some teeth sharper, built not for grinding but for cutting and crushing. These weren't just ancient elephants. They were two different species, shaped by two different worlds. Enter the mastodon and the mammoth. Named in 1817, mastodon literally means breast tooth due to the nipple-shaped cusps on its molars. Its teeth were unlike anything seen in elephant kind, designed to shear bark, snap twigs, and pulverize tough forest matter. The mammoth, by contrast, bore flattened, grooved molars, ideal for grinding tundra grasses into pulp. Even their bones told different stories. The mammoth skeleton was tall, lightweight, built for migration and cold endurance. The mastodon's frame was low, wide, heavy-set, adapted for power and dense forests. And then came the game-changer. In the frozen north, Siberia, Alaska, and the Arctic Circle, explorers began finding something even more shocking. Entire mammoths, frozen in time. Flesh intact, fur still clinging to the body. Even the contents of their stomachs preserved in icy stillness. These weren't just fossils, they were ghosts, preserved snapshots of a vanished world. Mastodons, on the other hand, left only bones and questions, fewer complete skeletons, no frozen remains. Their extinction was quieter, their story more elusive. But both discoveries, bone and ice, tusk and tooth, ignited a scientific arms race. Who were these creatures? How did they live? And more importantly, how did they die? The answers wouldn't come easy. But what was clear from the beginning was this: these weren't side characters in prehistory. They were giants, sharing a continent, and perhaps clashing for dominance. And now, after centuries of excavation and decades of study, we can finally ask the question no one could answer before. When two Ice Age titans walked the same ground, who really ruled it? At a glance, they looked similar, both massive, both tusked, both draped in fur and mystery. But these weren't clones of each other. They were built for two entirely different ice ages. Let's start with the mastodon. It wasn't tall, it was broad, stockier than its cousin, with a sloping back and powerful limbs designed for navigating dense, forested terrain. It stood about 9 to 10 feet tall at the shoulder, comparable to a modern-day African elephant, but it weighed over 10 tons. That's nearly twice the weight of a city bus. Its tusks were long, curved like sabers, sometimes over 8 feet. not just for show. These were multi-purpose weapons. They could be used to uproot trees, defend against predators, or even clash with rivals during mating season. But the real difference? Its teeth. Mastodon molars were shaped like giant ice cream scoops, perfect for shearing and crushing rough vegetation. Bark, twigs, pine cones, no problem. Its diet was coarse, its digestion slow, its body built for endurance. Now, meet the mammoth. Taller, narrower, faster. The woolly mammoth, the most famous of the clan, stood up to 13 feet tall and weighed 6 to 8 tons. It had a domed skull, a pronounced hump of fat behind its neck for warmth, and a coat of thick, oily fur designed to trap heat in the coldest environments on Earth. Its tusks? They didn't just curve, they spiraled. Some stretched over 15 feet, arcing in elaborate coils that could intimidate predators and sweep aside snow to reveal hidden grass. But its teeth were its secret weapon. Mammoth molars were flat, ridged like a washboard, designed for grinding. It grazed on tough tundra grasses, chewing endlessly through abrasive silicate-rich plants that would have worn down lesser animals in months. And while mastodons were content to remain in forested areas, mammoths conquered continents. From the frozen steppes of Siberia to the Great Plains of North America, mammoths expanded across a vast range, adapting their size, shape, and behavior to suit their environment. There were steppe mammoths, Columbian mammoths, pygmy mammoths on remote islands. Evolution shaped them into survival machines. If the mastodon was a battering ram, muscular, grounded, unmovable, the mammoth was a nomad, a strategist, a shapeshifter. Where one relied on strength, the other leaned into resilience. And when the Ice Age threw its worst at them, the battlefield wasn't just about brawn, it was about who could bend without breaking. The Ice Age wasn't a peaceful time. It was an age of extinction. Food was scarce, temperatures plunged, and every winter could be your last. In this frozen crucible, both mastodon and mammoth faced mounting threats, not from each other, but from the planet itself, and a new predator unlike anything they'd faced before: us. Yes, humans. When Homo sapiens crossed into North America around 15,000 years ago, the rules changed forever. Armed with fire-hardened spears, coordinated tactics, and a relentless will to survive, these early hunters saw more than just giants. They saw walking food, tools, shelter, warmth. Evidence from kill sites shows that both mastodons and mammoths were hunted, but their responses? Very different. The mammoth, ever adaptive, altered its range. It migrated vast distances, adjusted diet patterns, and displayed signs of complex social behavior. Some herds even learned to avoid human activity. The mastodon? Not so lucky. Less adaptable, less mobile, more territorial. Its preferred forest habitats were shrinking, fragmented by glacial swings and human encroachment. In many regions, mastodons disappeared first. Starved out, hunted down, trapped between a cooling climate and a spreading species armed with cunning. But this wasn't just a one-on-one death match. It was an ecological gauntlet, and only one giant had the tools to adapt. By the end of the Ice Age, both species were on the brink, but only one would leave behind frozen carcasses still standing, skin intact, in the permafrost of Siberia. Only one would linger long enough to inspire stories of the mammoth beast from every corner of ancient folklore. Size and strength may win battles, but survival? That belongs to the brain. And when it came to brain power, the mammoth had the edge. Fossilized skulls show that mammoths had larger cranial cavities relative to their body size than mastodons, suggesting a more developed neocortex, the part of the brain linked to memory, planning, and social intelligence. These weren't just lumbering beasts. They were strategic thinkers. Evidence from preserved herds, tusk wear patterns, and trackways suggests mammoths lived in matriarchal societies like modern elephants. They grieved their dead, protected their young, and passed down knowledge like migration routes and predator avoidance from one generation to the next. Mastodons, by contrast, appeared more primitive in behavior. Their social groups were smaller, their movement patterns more isolated, and their diets less flexible, focused mainly on forested environments which were rapidly disappearing. Evolution had taken these two creatures down very different paths. The mastodon had been around for millions of years, an Ice Age veteran, unchanged for eons. But evolution doesn't reward loyalty to the past. The mammoth evolved rapidly. From the towering imperial mammoth of North America to the shaggy, woolly mammoth of Siberia, it adapted to cold, to scarcity, to competition. And even as the Ice Age faded, a dwarf species of mammoth clung to survival on remote islands, living thousands of years after its larger cousins vanished. That's not just adaptation. That's a creature with a blueprint for endurance. The mastodon was muscle. The mammoth was memory, and in the game of extinction, only one got close to beating the odds. They had endured ice, hunger, predators, time itself. For millions of years, mastodons and mammoths defied extinction. But eventually, something changed. The end didn't come with an asteroid. It wasn't a volcanic winter or a sudden collapse. It came slow, uneven, ruthless. The climate began to shift. As the last ice age waned, glaciers retreated, grasslands shrank, forests changed. The mammoth's tundra vanished beneath warming skies. The mastodon's woodlands turned into swamps, then grasslands, then nothing. Their food sources collapsed, migration routes flooded or dried up, calving seasons grew unpredictable. And then came us, archaeological kill sites, dense with butchered bones and weapon shards, tell the same grim story across continents. These giants were being hunted, efficiently, relentlessly, systematically. The mastodon, already less adaptable, fell quickly, its range restricted, its population fractured. And once it disappeared from eastern North America, it never returned. The mammoth held on longer. In isolated pockets across Eurasia and the Americas, small herds trudged through the final millennia. But even they couldn't outrun extinction forever. The last known mammoths didn't die on the open tundra. They perished on a remote Arctic island around 4,000 years ago, centuries after the pyramids of Egypt were built. Their bones lay scattered along icy shores, silent, windblown, forgotten. The giants were gone, and with them, a chapter of Earth's wildest history slammed shut. But between the two, one outlasted the other. One carved a deeper mark into the fossil record and the human psyche. And that leads to one question. They both ruled. They both fell. But only one left a mark so deep, we're still trying to bring it back. The mastodon was power incarnate, a holdover from an older world. Built for brute force and dense forests, it thrived in a narrow lane. And when that lane closed, so did its story. The mammoth? It wasn't just a survivor, it was a shapeshifter, adapting across continents, evolving into new species, adjusting to cold, scarcity, and change. It lingered. It lasted. It left behind not just fossils, but legacies. We've found mammoths frozen in ice, preserved with fur and muscle. We've sequenced their DNA. We've studied their behavior. We know how they thought, how they moved, even how they mourned their dead. We've built entire fields of science around bringing one back. And if that day ever comes, if a shaggy, spiral-tusked giant walks the Arctic again, it won't be a mastodon returning. It will be the mammoth. So, who really dominated? The mastodon may have ruled the woods, but the mammoth conquered history. It survived longer, adapted farther, haunted deeper, and in the quiet corners of frozen earth, where bone and ice refuse to decay, it still waits. A sleeping legend, just one heartbeat away from waking again. The ice melted, the giants vanished, but extinction may not be forever. In cutting-edge labs from Boston to Beijing, scientists are assembling a puzzle 10,000 years in the making, reconstructing the genome of the woolly mammoth, piece by prehistoric piece. The goal? Not just to study it, to bring it back. Using CRISPR gene editing, researchers are fusing ancient mammoth DNA with the cells of Asian elephants, mammoths' closest living relatives. The result? Embryos that could one day grow into living, breathing Ice Age hybrids. Not replicas, not lookalikes, resurrected titans. And the environment they once ruled? It's thawing. Permafrost is vanishing. Arctic summers are hotter. The world mammoths once needed is reawakening. But here's the twist. Mastodon DNA is harder to find. Older, degraded, trapped deeper in the past. If we bring the mammoth back, alone, what happens to the balance? One Ice Age giant, without its ancient rival. Would we recreate the mammoth's glory? Or unleash something that never truly fit in the modern world? Because once that door is open, once we blur the line between extinction and existence, what else might we try to resurrect? And if the mammoth returns, what comes next?